This is my BX23. It's got an LA210 loader on it. And today we're going to be looking at the dreaded hydraulic cylinder leaks. This is the tilt cylinder, and you can see it is just all wet. So the plan is to remove that cylinder from the loader and then bring it to the bench. And then I've got a seal kit that I'm going to swap in to replace the worn, dried out seals. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, to start this project, we need to first, before we remove the hydraulic cylinder, is to loosen up this gland nut here. We want to keep the cylinder captured on the loader so we can apply pressure on this guy, some turning force to break that free before we get it on the bench. So in order to do that, we want to first protect the cylinder. We don't want to scratch this surface. This is the sealing surface. And we want to keep that pristine. So to do that, we're going to cover that with a towel. Keep it nice and safe. And then we're going to put our pipe wrench on this guy and try to break it free. There we go. Just like that. And then we will spin that off and on the bench, and we'll be able to pull that piston rod out and replace those seals. So now that we have that gland nut freed up, I want to see if we can actually leave this cylinder on the bucket and just pull the pin here and maybe tilt that up, take the gland all the way out and pull that rod out without having to disassemble this and the hoses and all that jazz. We'll see how well that works. Okay, to try to pull that pin, we need to remove cotter pin here, pull the pin here, and then slide this pin out. And hopefully that'll come out easy enough. We don't have to hammer on it. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's attempt to pull that cotter pin and the retaining pin and then slide that bigger pin all the way out. Hopefully it's loose. Here's the cotter pin. There's a retaining pin. Put that there. And there is the major pin. Beautiful. So we'll leave that there so we don't lose it. And then the next step is to tilt this up and capture this somehow and let the oil drain out down here and just pull the shaft out and bring it to the bench. Okay, now that that gland nut is almost free, we're going to spin the rest of that off and pull the entire rod out. Hopefully not damage anything. There we go. That looks good. And there it is. It's out. And it's ucky. But we will take that to the bench. We will break this nut free and then pull the gland off, pull the piston off, and replace those O-rings on the bench. Okay, now that we've got the rod locked in the vise, what we want to do is remove this nut. This is a 28 millimeter nut. I'm going to use my 3/4 drive, try to break it free, and then spin the rest of the way with my impact. We'll see how that works. That was pretty tight. Hopefully spin the rest of the way off with the impact. And there it is. Success. Okay, now that we have the rod on the bench, what we want to do is disassemble this to get the piston and the gland nut off so we can remove and replace the seals. Take the piston off. There it is. Looks to be in good shape. The O-ring, we've got a new one to go on. Doesn't want to come off. Yeah, it's brittle. It's old. Put that right there. And the gland. Slide that off. There we go. So typically what happens is these seals, you see the green one in there, is they get old and brittle and flattened, and that what causes it to tend to leak. This wiper too also gets damaged from constant use, sliding back and forth. So that'll get replaced, and these two outer O-rings will get replaced also. So we have a seal kit here. This is the kit I got from Kubota, 75-582, 64-600. This has all the seals that we need to replace on the piston and the gland nut. So we'll pull those out and we'll start pulling these off. Okay, now that we've got this gland nut off, we want to remove these seals. We've got a couple O-rings and a backer on the outside. We've got the wiper and we've got the piston seal on the inside. And let's use our pick tool to do that. Let's take these off. 1, 2. So we've got the O-ring first on that. Now we've got the backer. That comes off next. And then we've got the upper O-ring that comes off. Let's spin that off. Like so. They're all old and brittle. And now we have to get out the inside O-rings. Let's move this out of the way so we don't damage it. First, it's removing this wiper. Let's see if we can get underneath here. And there we go. There's the wiper. Yeah, that is pretty beat. And now the hardest one is this inner seal. Let's see if we can get at that. Wants to come. Well, that is brittle. Yeah, it just broke. Pull that out. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty well flattened and brittle, and 20 years. It's a 2004, so these are original. And they lasted a long time, but they recently let go. We had a really cold snap this winter, and it's now time to replace them. So now it's clean up this gland, and then we'll put the new seals on, and then we'll move on to the piston. Okay, now that we've got gland all cleaned up, now it's time to install the seals. And this is the rod seal, and the way this goes in, it's got a little lip that goes towards the pressure side, so that will go down. So we're going to have to squeeze that in there, pop it in, work it around. Takes a little bit, but you should be able to get it. Just start it in that lip, go around, get it in, squeeze it down, and one more, hopefully. And there it goes. So that is in. Looks good. Now we've got to get the wiper installed. That's this outer seal. So we've got a new one here. This is kind of a pressed in or hammered in. It should go this way. Get that set. All right, let's see if we can get this started. These are kind of difficult to do. All right, now I needed a harder surface other than this bench to tap it in because it was just bouncing here on I have a cushioned bench. So that is now seated, and it looks good. Now let's start with the O-rings on the outer. I think what I want to do is to tape off these threads so when I slide the O-ring over, it doesn't cut the surface of that O-ring. Let's do that just to be safe. We can take that tape off when we're done. All right, that provides a nice flat, smooth, non-sharp surface to slide these new O-rings on over. Let's try that. Beautiful. And now let's remove the tape. Don't want to forget to remove the tape. There we go. That looks good. And let's add the backer and the other O-ring on there. That's the backer. And that is kind of beveled on one side. The bevel should go towards the O-ring. Get that on just like so. And then the other O-ring will slide in there. And I think that looks good. Seated all the way around. All right, I think that gland is done, ready to be reinstalled. We can slide that back on our shaft. Let's give that a shot. Get our shaft back over here. A nice wipe. It's my towels. Don't want anything on there. Screw up that new seal. All right, slide this on. All right, that looks good. Now let's move on to our piston. Put this aside, and the piston goes on only one way. It's got a groove here for the O-ring to mate up to the shaft, so we can actually put that new O-ring on now before we rebuild this so we don't forget. Let's do that. So the new O-ring, yeah, same deal here. Let's tape these threads just so we don't hurt that O-ring, new O-ring when it goes on, just to be safe. All right, slide that new O-ring over. There she goes, nice and easy. And up against that. Let's see if we can take this tape off. Okay, that looks good. Set that aside. And let's disassemble this piston. These guys just split, so they just pop out. Easy enough. See that? There's one. And this other split is two. Come on. There we go. It's two, and then the seal here is, let's see how we can do here. Okay, we're going to continue on with the piston and get the piston seal out. This is like a Teflon. Oh, popped it. Brittle. Yep. And then underneath it is the expander. Take that off. And then we'll clean this up and we'll reinstall the seals. All right, now that we've got that cleaned up, we want to install our seals. We're going to put piston seal expander on first. Get it in the groove. Spin around. It looks good. Now we put a Teflon seal on. This one's a little more difficult to do. work to compress that back down. So we'll get a hose clamp, and I'll clamp that around there and get that back into its right size. And then we'll install the outer rings, and then we'll be able to put this back together. All right, so we used our hose clamp to get that back into size. That looks good. Now we're going to put on our outer rings. Those in place. Those are pretty easy. And looks like it's good to go. So all we need to do is slide this on. We'll put a little oil on that once I clamp it down for good, but I think that is good to go. We'll be able to grease this up and install it, and hopefully no more leaks. We'll see how it goes. So we're back at the vise, and it's time to tighten down the piston nut. We're going to use our impact with a 28mm socket to run it down. And we'll do the final tightening with our 3/4 inch ratchet. Okay, that's good. So it's back to the tractor. We'll lube up those seals and we'll slip it in. To make it easier to slip this piston back into that bore, I'm going to release one of the hoses so we don't have to work against any trapped air. So I'm going to disconnect this upper hose. This is 11/16. Should be enough to do it. And I've already lubed up the piston and the O-rings on the rod. So let's see how much success we can have slipping that back in. Okay. All right. Going in nice and easy. Put that back down there. Use my pin spanner. Kind of spin that around. Now we're up against the O-ring. Tighten it up. Yep. All right. It's tight. Give it a tap. I get a soft blow hammer or a sledge. Tap to tight. There it is. That's down. So all we need to do is reconnect, similar to how we disconnected, just in reverse, and tighten up the hoses and give it a try. Okay, so now that we've got that pin back in, hooked back up to the bucket, and the hose connections tightened, let's start it up and see if we can get movement and see if there's any leaks. All right, looks good. Let's check for some leaks here. Nice and dry. All right, now that we've checked all the connections are leak free, I think the next step is to check the hydraulic fluid level. Obviously, we lost a lot of fluid when we pulled that rod out of there, so we've got to fill that back up and then try it for a week or two, see if we've got any leaks. But I think overall, this job went well, and I think we're done here. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to leave them, and I'll get back to you. And thanks for watching.